Thank you very much, Ms. Deputy Energy Minister for South Africa's government. Let me ask you this. What is South Africa's Renewable Energy Master Plan, or the SAREM? Talk to me about this initiative.
Hi, Peter. It's so SAREM, we call it SAREM because it's obviously the easiest way of referring to it. So SAREM is essentially South Africa's new plan to industrialize around renewable energy. So the idea was mooted about 6 years ago. It's taken that long to get the plan developed. It was really, really collaborative. It was done with civil society, with labor, with energy companies, the department. So it was a really collaborative plan that was put together to look at ways that we could find value chains that we could industrialize around, particularly with respect to something like manufacturing, but also in the service industry within the renewable energy value chain. So at this stage, the focus is primarily on solar, wind, and battery. But obviously, it's a living plan. It's something that will evolve over time. And then once that's happened, we will start reviewing, what other technologies we incorporate, things like green hydrogen and other technologies. But for now, we'll be focusing obviously on getting the project management unit established, and then beyond that, we'll also be reviewing it concurrently as we roll it out.
Madam Samantha, why is this so important to South Africa and its people?
Okay, so there are a number of reasons. I mean, as you well know, South Africa's come out of a stage of real energy insecurity. We've had load shedding for a number of years. We've had huge problems with energy provision in the country. So energy security has become our number one priority as a department and as a country. But beyond that, we have to look at ways to create jobs in South Africa. We have the highest unemployment rate in the world, and it's not getting better. So we have to find ways where we create jobs. And one of the ways we can do that is to stop exporting our raw materials and importing final products, particularly with this whole energy revolution that's happening with the renewable energy space that's evolving so rapidly within the country. We've had a massive rollout. We've had 10 gigs of renewable energy rollout in the last few years, and we haven't capitalized on that. So we're importing components, we're importing turbines, we're importing solar panels. We could be manufacturing a large portion of that value chain ourselves. We also see SAREM as an opportunity to upskill and develop new skills within the renewable energy space. And then obviously we also want to make sure that we are creating service companies and organizations around the renewable energy space so that we're not sending equipment to Germany to be serviced when we can do it within South Africa. So it's a really, really critical plan if we're going to capitalize on the renewable energy revolution that's happening and create the jobs that we need to take our country forward and create these value chains in manufacturing, so that we can start reindustrializing our country and our continent.
Well, Madam Samantha, do you think there's a political will for this? Does it have a groundswell of support? And how realistic do you think these are?
So absolutely, we took it to cabinet in April, and cabinet approved it wholeheartedly. In fact, the president himself endorsed this plan and said it was one of the best master plans he's seen come through cabinet. So we were very proud of the plan that we delivered. And as I say, it still needs to be reworked and revised, but we're very proud of what we've got to start off with. Last week, we had our first executive oversight committee meeting for the new executive. We've got buy-in from all stakeholders, so from industry, from labor, from community, from the sector. So we really are feeling support from the industry bodies, from the IPPs, from business. So we really have managed to consolidate a lot of support around what we're trying to achieve. We're in the process of establishing the project management office. And then once that's established, we'll be ready to roll out. So I do believe that we have the support from every sector. There's a vested interest in making this plan work, not only from a manufacturing perspective, but also from ensuring that we have the components that we need as we start to roll out the renewable energy in our country.
So, as the Deputy Minister in charge of energy, talk to me about energy efficiency and demand side management with emphasis placed on South Africa's buildings registering for energy performance certification, since you have this Grand Master Plan.
Yeah, so the thing is in as much as we're building and growing our energy, and we're going to have to triple our energy output over the next 20, 30 years, particularly through Africa. So we all talk about energy efficiency as the first fuel. In other words, this is energy you don't have to manufacture or generate. So every megawatt of energy you don't have to generate is a massive saving in terms of your infrastructure, in terms of your expenditure. So we're trying to drive a narrative around energy efficiency, allowing people to make the choices that are going to bring their electricity bills down, make sure that we're using energy efficiently and expeditiously, that we're not wasting energy. We've had such a low amount of energy over the years that we really need to start harnessing what energy we do have to make sure that we are saving our country money, saving people money. So the Energy Performance Certificate was an initiative that was launched quite a few years ago. What happened was there was no sort of real support for it, so it limped along, and then as it neared the sort of deadline, everybody sort of panicked and realized they hadn't done anything to do this, so the deadline was extended. However, we've taken a decision we're not going to extend the deadline now. So currently the deadline is for the 7th of December this year. What we require is that all government buildings over 1,000 square meters and all private buildings in particular categories like entertainment sites, etc., that are over 2,000 square meters are required to register and then within 3 months of registering, display an energy performance certificate. So what this is essentially is a baseline of what their energy efficiency is within that building, what their usage is, where they're positioned, what category they fall within, so that we can then start, collecting the data around where buildings are at, benchmark those, and then start promoting ways for companies and government to improve the energy efficiency of their buildings. So that again, we are saving them money, we're making sure that we're using our energy efficiently and properly. So in the past, this has been seen very much as a sort of box checking exercise. It's kind of been a government regulated thing. There's been a very much a stick approach. What we're trying to do now is find ways to incentivize this. Let people choose that this is, energy efficiency becomes a choice that they make and not something that they're forced into. Because the problem with energy efficiency is in order for us to, improve the energy efficiency of an existing building, it's going to cost money. And it's money that you then spend and you don't see the benefit of that money for a year or two or three because obviously it comes back in savings. It doesn't come back as sort of a tangible, quantifiable amount. So it's a difficult sell, but it's something that we believe that if we can get people to understand the value of energy efficiency and what it ultimately will mean for them, that people will not have to be pushed into it, they will actually ultimately choose. We also at G20, we have launched the conversation around an energy efficiency facility for Africa, working with the AU and working with the United Nations Environment Program. So we will be signing that and launching that officially in Addis Ababa at the end of the year. But effectively, what this will be is a facility to provide financing for energy efficiency objectives. And people have said to me, well, how does that benefit Africa? So at the moment, we've got about 600 million Africans that do not have access to energy.
Right.
So we have a massive job that we have to do in terms of rolling energy out to the rest of Africa. Mission 300, which is a program with the World Bank and African Development Bank, is geared towards trying to meet that objective of 300 million Africans by 2030. We're not sure if we'll reach that target, but we're very much part of that initiative. And somebody said, well, how does energy efficiency play into this? If we can start off doing the right thing in terms of the energy that we roll out, so we automatically creating energy efficiency as we're rolling energy out, then we're already saving about 40 gigs of energy that we won't have to produce in the next 20 years in order to make sure that Africa becomes energized.
Hmm.
So energy efficiency is not a sexy topic. People don't always really care much about it, but the benefits of it are absolutely enormous. And we're trying to drive that narrative so that people understand it.
Hmm. Now, you talked about the G20 summit. Talk to me about clean cooking from an African and G20 perspective while on this topic.
Absolutely. So in as much as 600 million Africans don't have access to energy, a billion Africans don't have access to clean cooking methods. We have a disproportionate number of women and young children that die every year due to the inhalation of toxic fumes from unclean cooking methods. We have to change the way people are cooking so that we can start saving lives. So clean cooking has become it's an AU objective. It was adopted, I think, in Saudi when they did their G20 several years ago, but it hasn't really gained a lot of momentum. Brazil sort of pushed it last year in the G20, but when we took over the G20 presidency this year, we felt very strongly that it needed to be an African G20. As the only African country represented on the G20, other than the AU, which is now also represented, we felt very strongly that we had to have a strong African narrative to what we were trying to achieve through the G20 that we have. So clean cooking is one of our priority outcomes. Well, it's one of our objectives under one of our priority outcomes. So the idea is that we not only we launch a legacy program, which we did last week, the minister unveiled that, and that is around gas using LNG, liquefied gas, for cooking.
Right.
But we also looking at things like biofuels, how we can take clean cooking, methodologies into rural areas where people have got no access, where they're using, they're having to chop down trees and, burn fires to cook on. So we really want clean cooking, not to, it's not an event. Although we had an event last week, clean cooking is not an event. It's an ongoing journey that we're going to have to drive, and we feel very strongly that we've launched it in Africa as part of this G20, but it's something we're going to continue driving even beyond the G20.
Now, Madam Samantha, as the Deputy Energy Minister, you know this more than I do, that South Africa remains the only African country with nuclear energy. But plans to extend nuclear as part of the country's energy mix. What do you think, and how will it fit into South Africa's energy future?
Yeah, so we remain Africa's only nuclear country, but not for very long. Egypt is currently building 4 nuclear reactors. Ghana and Kenya are in the throes of looking at nuclear. And in fact, we got a report presented to us by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, I think it was in July at our third Energy Transitions Working Group on nuclear in Africa. So currently, there are about 22 countries within the African continent that are in some stage of a nuclear process and a nuclear build. But at this stage, obviously, we've got two reactors at Kuburg, which we use for power generation. And then we've got the Safari reactor at Pelindaba, which we use for research and for the production of radioisotopes. So, but both of them are old now. So Kuburg has already hit 40. It's middle aged. We've got extension of life on Unit 1 for another 20 years. We're hoping we'll get extension of life for another 20 years on Unit 2. We'll know in November. And Safari is the old lady. Safari turned 60 this year. So we are still looking at extension of life for maybe another 10, 20 years, hopefully. But in terms of where we're at, we've stalled on our nuclear for a long time. We were world leaders. We were founding members of the International Atomic Energy Agency in 1957. Our nuclear program has been around since the 1940s. So we really have to refocus on becoming a world leader again in nuclear, not just on the continent, but globally. And we're still hugely respected. So on the medical side, in fact, today the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency arrived in South Africa, his first visit since he became the DG. So we're very proud to be hosting him. So we took him today to Nexa to go and look at the Safari 1 reactor, and then we took him to Maree. Maree is the nuclear medical research infrastructure attached to the Steve Biko Academic Hospital. And the work that they are doing there is absolutely groundbreaking in what they call theranostics, which is diagnostics and therapy around nuclear medicine. So it's particularly the treatment, the diagnostics and treatment of cancer. So we are one of 4 centers, they call them anchor centers of hope around the world. And I must say that the DG today said he was absolutely blown away by how brilliant our Maree is. It is just a world-class institution. And people from Europe are coming to get treatment. So we are also one of only 4 countries that produce radioisotopes that treat cancer in the world. So we still remain at the top of that. But obviously, our nuclear build around energy has stalled. So our IRP, which is our electricity blueprint, it's our integrated resource plan, has gone to cabinet. We're hoping that it'll come through the cabinet process shortly. That speaks to about a 10,000 megawatt build of nuclear, not just in terms of a large reactor, but potentially small modular reactors as well. The initial small modular reactor intellectual property was in South Africa. We were the initiators of the pebble bed modular reactors. So we were the first to come up with this idea. We were one of the first countries to start this development. And then we just shelved everything and put everything into care and maintenance. So we're pulling our pebble bed modular reactor IP out of care and maintenance. We're going to review that IP. We are busy procuring a new multi-purpose reactor so that we can grow our research and our radioisotope medical side. And then we're obviously going to look at how we're going to roll out nuclear for power. Tomorrow, the IAEA are going to present a report which we have commissioned from them on coal to nuclear. So there is a potential that we will look at adapting existing coal-fired power stations that need to be decommissioned into nuclear power stations using small modular reactors because you've got all the infrastructure. So we have a very, very strong foundation to reboot our nuclear program in this country and reclaim our space as one of the top nuclear countries in the world.
Madam Samantha, thank you very much for giving us a bit of your time. I know it's getting to early evening in South Africa, so we'll stop it here. We'll continue this conversation some other time since energy is very critical to South Africa and by extension the continent as well. So we'll continue this conversation some other time.
Peter, it's been such a pleasure chatting. Thank you so much, and I look forward to us chatting again.